Well, now that we've heard a CEO, a professor, and a mother, most importantly, combined together speak about millennials, wouldn't it also be nice to hear about millennials from a millennial himself? So here I am. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Pritish Bhattacharya, and I'm an Economics Research Officer at the Institute of Southeast Asian Studies. The topic that I've chosen for today's presentation is based on gaining mileage out of millennials. And before I delve into the details, I'd quickly like to explain why I selected this theme. I consider myself pretty fortunate to have been given the opportunity to present at the 2016 LVMH conference as well as today. And I remember very clearly that at the end of the last conference, all presenters were gathered in the auditorium like this morning. And there was this one gentleman, his name slips me right now, but he, in his closing remarks, said something along the lines, I don't think millennials exist, because when they grow up, they'll just turn into their parents. So what's the point of looking at them as a separate entity? And I was sitting in the audience thinking, well, that can't be right. That really can't be right. I need to talk to more people my age to figure out what they think about it. And that was truly the inception of this particular study project. So for the next 20 minutes, sit back, relax, and think of some witty questions to ask me at the end of my 20 minutes on securing mileage out of millennials. So in my study, I basically tried to answer three very fundamental questions with respect to luxury consumption. The first one being, has the basic concept of luxury changed over the years? Second, do millennials look at luxury differently as compared to members of other generations? And finally, what are the marketing implications of this? What can luxury brands do to entice and retain millennials in the long run? Now, this is a quick snapshot of the existing literature on luxury, and this is truly a snapshot. There are literally hundreds of scholars who've written about luxury, but these are the prominent ones. So, 119 years ago, an economist by the name of Thorstein Veblen, he came up with the core concept of conspicuous consumption. He said, put your wealth on display. That will arouse the envy and esteem of your fellow men. 50 years later, Lebenstein said something along the lines that luxury consumption can be explained by two factors. First, you can either be snobbish about it, or you want to emulate a certain reference group, and that's why you just join the bandwagon and start purchasing luxury. After that, we have Dubois and Pateron. They said even more interestingly that the prestige associated with the luxury brand simply nosedives the moment people start buying more of it. We also have Roux and Flock, who in 1996 said that luxury brands are always in this dilemma or this predicament. On one hand, they want to increase their profits, but they're very scared about diluting their brands. They don't want to standardize it too much. We also have Professor Caprera. I'm in a way relieved that he's not here because you'll see for reasons later on. He said that luxury is this precious commodity that should be seen by all, but touched by a happy few. And more recently, we have Fau and Prendergast, who said that the target of luxury brands is this creme de la creme of the entire population, that small group with the highest disposable income. So what I want to say here is that the common thread running through all these notions of luxury is the concept of exclusivity. It's like saying that luxury should not be accessible to all. It is something very rare. And me having luxury, that's like me perceiving myself as king. You don't have a luxury brand, you're a peasant. And this strategy has worked for decades. But what I am arguing is that it might not necessarily be the case for millennials. So, to answer the gentleman's question from the last session, who wanted to know who millennials are, who these mythical creatures are, the agreed upon year of birth of millennials is considered from 1982 onwards. They are referred to as members of the Y generation, because from 2002 we have Generation Z. I don't know what will happen after that. Maybe we'll start the Excel format, A, B, whatever. There are some studies that talk about millennials in general, and they said that millennials seem to be more affluent, they're more educated, they're more well-traveled, they are more experienced in terms of practice and social media interactions and so on. Now, the third finding is something I'm embarrassed to admit, but millennials have also been found to be more self-centered, and self-gratification is a very important element in their personalities, and they're informally referred to as the me generation, and understandably so. The burning question, however, is why are millennials important to us? Because Bain and Company, in a very recently published report, the report was published in November of 2017, They said that within the next 7 to 8 years, millennials will occupy close to 40% of the global personal luxury segment. And that's a proportion that you don't want to forego, so you might as well try to understand that. And it's a pity that there's hardly any literature that is devoted to examining the direct relationship between millennials and luxury consumption. And that's where I think my study comes in handy. So, how exactly did I conduct my research? My study is based on a sample of 89 millennials who work in Singapore, but they represent 17 different nationalities. The average age was close to 27 years, the standard deviation being 4 years. Also, I had 51 female participants and 38 male respondents. I tried to ensure that they came from different backgrounds. When I say different backgrounds, I mean varying levels of education, different occupations, different preferences, different religions, in fact. And together, 17 nationalities for one study is, I think, a pretty decent number. But more importantly, the qualifying criteria to be a part of my study was that these millennials should be owners of luxury in the first place, and in the previous year they should have purchased at least 2 personal luxury commodity items. So I'm not dealing with first-time purchases, but they are young enough to be considered millennials. The youngest participant was 18 and the oldest was 35. So the range being pretty 18 years, that's a significant number. Once I had this perfect sample, I interviewed them. Now these were face-to-face interviews that lasted between 10 and 30 minutes. And I tried to ask them all sorts of questions about their motivations, about their intentions, their incentives, the belief system, and what are the things that they actually look for in a luxury product. And once I had these well-rounded interviews, I transcribed them. The textual data that I had on luxury consumption was then analyzed using something called hermeneutics. Now, hermeneutics is a mechanism that has been developed by this professor called Craig Thompson. He's from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. In 1997, he came up with this system of deciphering marketing implications out of consumers' consumption stories. And in technical terms, it is based on a circular part-to-whole analysis. What that means is, once you have these interview transcripts, in the first round you undertake readings of those transcripts over and over again, and you do this sequentially so that you're able to develop a bigger picture. And once you have that in place, you again read the transcripts, but this time simultaneously, and you identify common themes. I can speak more about the methodology after the presentation, or even better, I can direct you to Craig Thompson's paper published in the Journal of Marketing Research in 1997. That brings me to the findings. The first important finding of my study is that the importance associated with the exclusivity of luxury brand seems to be on the decline. And that's not me saying that. This is what Natasha says. I'll give you a second to read. So she's a 29-year-old Australian working in Singapore, and her office is located in Raffles Place, where literally every other lady carries a Louis Vuitton handbag. But she says that neither stopped her nor did it encourage her from buying a bag of her own. She wanted to buy the bag only because she liked the product. That's it, no other factors. We then have Samuel. He's 27-year-old and he's a Singaporean. He's a full-time student at NUS and a part-time employee who doesn't earn too much. Now, brand managers, I need you to take out your pencils and papers and take note of this. Despite earning close to only $1,600, he spent more than a third of his salary to watch Britney Spears perform live in concert. So I need you all to realize that concerts can also be luxury experiences, especially if you have Coachella, you include Justin Bieber concerts. They're incredibly expensive, exorbitantly priced. But what's interesting to note here is that he says he was surrounded by close to 8,000 individuals, and that didn't stop him from enjoying the luxury product. So luxury can be a collective, it can be a non-exclusive experience, and everyone can have fun with luxury. The final quotation is from Michael. He's 34 years old and he's American, and he was telling me that he was wearing these handcrafted shoes from an Italian shoemaker, which cost him more than $1,000. And then he said, you know, Pritish, no one really notices these, and I'm fine with that. The only reason I bought these shoes is because I spent close to 12 hours in office and I want the most comfortable pair of shoes that fit me like a glove, and eventually just buy something that will last me for a long time. What I'm coming to here is that people value luxury products for what the product is and not the factors that surround it. Which brings me to my second finding. Just like the importance of exclusivity from the decline, the importance of a group of collective factors, which I call worth it attributes, seems to be on the rise. What are these worth it attributes? We have 4 that I was able to find in this study. First being the functionality and the practicality of the good. Second, we have durability, how long will the good last. We have the design component associated with luxury goods. And finally, we have something called unique identity. In this slide, I'll be going to show you 4 representative quotes regarding every single attribute. So we have Simi. She's 31 years old from South Africa, and she told me that she intended to purchase these luxury sunglasses from a luxury brand. She went to a store, she found a piece that she totally liked, and just moments before actually paying to purchase that product, she realized that the glasses didn't offer protection against UV rays. What did she do? She just went to the next store, bought a non-luxury pair of sunglasses. No one's waiting here. With regards to durability, we have Karina. Her office was located in Marina Bay, and she's 26 years old, and she said she spent close to $8,000 on a bag, and her only desire is that the bag lasts for a long, long time. She says, it better last me a lifetime. Well, that's not happening, but as long as she can maintain the product. Karan from India says that it's the design of the product that really catches his attention. And this is true not only for luxury products, but also non-luxury products. In fact, he goes on to say that if he doesn't find the product good enough in terms of how it looks, he's just not interested. The final attribute has something to do with unique identity. Now, this is in line with the paper that I presented in the last conference, where millennials or young adult luxury consumers seem to be giving a lot of importance to perceived unique value. And there is this one scholar, Russell Bell, who talks about possessions being an extended self of your personality. And that is clearly reflected in what Jungian says. Now, I don't want to misquote her, so I'll just read it off the slide. She says, at the end of the day, the luxury good should speak to me. I honestly never use luxury to flaunt how well I'm doing in life. The only determinant of my purchase behavior is to what extent does the item represent me. So again, what comes across here, what you can decipher here is that the exclusivity of a brand is not sufficient in itself to hold on to the attention of millennials. You really have to invest in worth it factors, and there is nothing wrong with that. This brings me to the marketing implications. Now, I do realize that every time I say exclusivity is not important, just focus on other things, there is at least one brand practitioner out in the world who's hyperventilating and thinking, well, does that mean we have to dilute our brands? I have an answer for that as well. Okay, the first definition of brand dilution is not from me. It's from 2 scholars, Magnoni and Roux. This is the same Roux who featured in the 3rd slide. And he defines brand dilution. And they say, a company, whether it's luxury or otherwise, dilutes only when it deviates from its core set of beliefs. That's it. Nothing else is brand dilution. But it's interesting to know that luxury brands have also been started with small ticket items, as they call, to attract the attention of others. On your screens, you'll see some prominent examples. We have the Gucci woolen headband on the top right corner. Right below that, we have a Dolce & Gabbana iPhone case. Immediately to its right is a Chanel yoga mat. On the extreme left, we have a Louis Vuitton magnet. And to its immediate right, we have a Versace keychain. So is this dilution? There's a lot of debate about this, that small ticket items, they're trickling down, they're diluting their stuff. That's not really the case, because this is just an attempt by a group of brands to reach out to more people by venturing into new products. Which brings me to the second part of my argument. If that is not brand dilution, then appealing to millennials by moving away from exclusivity should also not be seen in a negative light. That's fine. There's so much debate about prestige products, prestige for the masses, and that being democratized and that being seen as same as brand dilution. But I don't think so, because these are 2 very different concepts. At one point of time, democratization of any good is bound to happen because of 3 very fundamental reasons. First, we are not living in Veblen's times anymore. We have social classes, but a lot of them have been replaced by social groups. And these reference groups can't be simply distinguished on the basis of income. You have different cultures, you have different preferences, you have different statuses, you have different perceptions, and so on. Second, overall, all across the world, we have an increase in the level of income. So of course, more people will be able to buy luxury. And finally, the disparity of income that is measured by Gini coefficient also seems to be on the decline. Again, this is true for Africa, right up to America, all basic continents. So again, if someone's concerned about brand dilution, I would simply like to point out this. If the quality of your product is declining, that's dilution. If your brand extensions don't work, that's dilution. If your return customers are not coming back to you, then the alarm bell should start ringing. But only just because you're trying to convince more people to buy your products, that is not the same thing as dilution. Which brings me to this very important question. What can brands basically do? Now, it's important to note that my suggestions and recommendations are simply based on the worth factors that I discussed right now. So, millennials seem to be concerned about how functional their products are. And for that, brands, what they can do is they can extend price ranges. And more importantly, they can offer incremental product features at every price point. That way the millennials know what exactly are they paying for. So no one's fooled here, no one's being manipulated here. They have a clear idea of this is the X amount of dollars that I pay, and these are product features that come along with it. That's it. I wasn't going to say this because we have a representative from Louis Vuitton, but the Louis Vuitton...
Please say. It's time for questions, right? People told me that I can be critical.
Yes, please, by all means.
You did a good job so far. Thank you.
So, if you go into the Louis Vuitton website and you search for a product, it is absolutely impossible to find the price of the product. How much does it cost? When I say Louis Vuitton handbag price, I was thinking of buying a bag for my mother, and I didn't get the price on the website. I had to check eBay to find a competitive price, and only then was I informed. Okay, this is the size of the bag that's available on the website, but these are the number of dollars that I spent on the bag. So keep them informed and don't consider that hiding the price will have some different kind of an illusion. That's not going to happen.
True, that's true.
When it comes to the durability component,
you still spoke about Louis Vuitton, so that's good.
as far as durability is concerned, I think it's time to realize the fact that millennials need more than just a signal. They need assurances that the products will last for a long time. The least that luxury brands can do at this point is offer guarantees. If they're not in a position to do so, at least offer easy, hassle-free in-house repair services so that no one is going on with a damaged product and running around here and there and waiting for 30-day repair services by himself or herself driving to the service center. Try to give him a luxury experience and justify that. As far as the design component is concerned, there's been so much talk about online communication, and I think it's important for brands to interact with their millennial clients using online as well as offline communication channels. It's not sufficient to create an Instagram page and be done with it. You have to talk to them, you have to direct message them, you have to get their immediate feedback. That way you're able to minimize the time lag between when the comments come in, when does a new design come in, and when the product with that design is launched. And that way everyone can be on the top of their games. Finally, when I spoke to some millennials, they spoke about their products representing their identities and their personalities. For them specifically, luxury brands can offer customization, and it's fine to charge them a premium because they know what they're paying for. If they really want their products to stand out, they should be willing to pay for it, and I don't think they'll hold back because they know the exact return for their buck. Just to wrap things up, there are 4 basic findings in this study. First, exclusivity is no longer the central tenet of luxury consumption, exclusively for millennials. Second, millennials really focus on worth it attributes. These attributes being functionality, design, durability, and unique identity of the product. Finally, we are talking about the fact that appealing to luxury should not be seen as a cause of brand dilution because these are 2 very different, unconnected topics. And finally, in order for luxury brands to appeal to more people, it is imperative, almost indispensable at this point, to change their marketing strategies. This is basically the end of my presentation, but I would like to leave you with one parting thought. In literature, there are 2 authors, Chadda and Husband, who in 2006 referred to millennials as nibblers, a term I find personally very offensive. Because here's the thing, no one's nibbling anything anymore. Based on my study and the studies being presented in this conference, I think it's high time you refer to them as diligent, discerning devourers of luxury instead of nibblers. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you. Right. I'm open to questions now.
I have.
Yes, please.
I wonder, and I'm wondering out loud, if you were to use the same set of questions, not on millennials, but on an older generation, would the outcome and the findings be the same? Because among us here, there are a lot of millennials. We also look for function. We also look for durability. We also look for design. We also look for unique identity. So would that finding be similar?
Okay. It will be similar, but it will be different in the fact that the weightages assigned to these attributes will be different. So if I ask my grandmother what kind of a bag she likes, she said, oh, our luxury brand has to stand out. I have to ensure that no one in my vicinity has that bag. She assigned less importance to functionality and what it represents about her. So millennials seem to be more focused on the worth it attributes. So while the attributes might themselves be the same, the importance associated with individual attributes that will change by generations.
Better she to build on that.
Yes.
Yeah, Pritish, first thank you very much for this kind of presentation. I'm more interested with the question number 3 that you posed before the community. Question number 3. Yeah. So interact is more like a brand co-creation or value co-creation. You are putting this question before the luxury marketers. So do you think essentially, right now most of the luxury marketers, they are not giving so much importance to the value co-creation part, they are not involving the customers in terms of generating and developing the brands altogether. What do you think? How it will help the luxury marketers out in terms of developing their brands through this value co-creation? I'm referring to that journal, that paper of Prahlad and Ramaswamy.
Okay. I'll start with the second part of the answer. I will say that some brands are incorporating some sort of co-creation mechanisms, and that's why you have those fridge magnets and the fact that there's someone coming up with a phone case and a yoga mat. So they are getting some sort of feedback from direct millennials, but not to the extent that it should happen. And regarding the first part, that how is it going to help brands? Of course it's going to help brands, because we now no longer have a standard standard list of products. The consumption basket is expanding. The features that people are looking for is also expanding. So yes, interacting with more people will be beneficial and be a win-win game for customers, both because they are able to give direct feedback, as well as brands because they are able to acquaint themselves with the newest preference trends. So yeah, I think it will be a mutually beneficial process. Yes, please.
My question is related to the statement you made, that your suggestion you made to luxury brands is that you could probably offer differential pricing with differential features.
Yeah.
That brings us to the fact that consumption of luxury, as the gentleman said, that democracy, it's more meritocracy today. It is not really about democracy or whether I belong to a king's family or not. So it's meritocracy. I work hard, I study hard, I make more money, I buy it. The automobile space is already adopting to this methodology of offering differential questions, categories and features. What does happen to, let's say, brands like a Louis Vuitton, which is not into automobile space? Where does the Maybachs and the Rolls Royce go when you adopt this kind of a strategy for them? Because the automobile space is clearly sort of differentiated, saying that we are core luxury, we are up there, and it's the Mercedes that can be diluted and can be brought down to what you're suggesting. How can this be adopted by, let's say, a more mass luxury brand?
I have to be speculative in this context, because when I selected my sample, that was based on personal luxury commodities that didn't include cars. I'm pretty sure it's not possible to offer a car for $10,000 and go to $1 million, and at every $100 you offer 20 new features. That's not going to happen. But yes, what I'm basically suggesting is that I'm not going after the price either. Millennials are willing to pay, but they have to be justified. And they have to be convinced that if this amount of money is going into a product, I'm really getting the value out of it. So yeah, I can say for smaller items, fragrances and perfumes and watches, but cars is not my expertise. So sorry.
The person personal luxury products, did you include, I don't know, phones or computers?
Yeah, so no, personal luxury products. So personal luxury, the standard list of items or the roster of items includes fragrances, perfumes, handbags, wallets, eyewear, and sunglasses. So more on the accessories, but slightly going towards mainstream items, but not too much of it.
Because what you're describing is what the computer companies do in the first presentation. People cited technology products as
But
luxury.
because the study was conducted in Singapore, where Apple MacBooks are not considered luxury, you go to the US, every student sitting in the canteen will have a MacBook Pro. So the fact that it's very expensive, that doesn't matter, because somehow the money is coming to them and somehow they are making the purchase. So gone are the days where iPhone 10 was considered luxury. Now everyone has it. Yes.
My belief is that the foundation of marketing is segmentation. Right?
Yes.
If we take millennials as people born between 1980 and 2000, so that's about 2 billion people.
Right.
So my question, and that's also addressed to the managers in the room, isn't there a danger here to group together 2 billion people and say that they share certain characteristics? I mean, doesn't that defy basically the very foundation of marketing? I mean, I can accept that they have a different relationship to technology because they've grown up in a different market context. But beyond that, is it a stretch? I mean, it's like saying that I'm basically going to have my marketing strategy based on marketing for men, marketing for women, right? So, like in this day and age, I mean, isn't that like the risk of building on stereotypes? Isn't that dangerous for brands?
To answer that, well, I of course can't generalize my study to the extent because I had 89 people. Of course, had I constructed a study with 8,900 people, we could have said something else. But I would like to bring up this. During my interactions with the millennials, and these were like all sorts of age, from 18 to 35, 17 to 20, all sorts of backgrounds, none of them said, oh, I want that bag because I want to get my hands on it first. Or because my neighbor doesn't have it, I want that first. So again, the findings of this study are rather generic to the extent that I'm focusing on worth it attributes, which every single millennial will really appreciate, whether it's 2 billion or 20 billion. They'll really want a product that is good in terms of how it features, what kind of functions does it support, and so on. And as far as segmentation is concerned, I would rather go on product differentiation than segmentation. You are, again, giving a product that people really want, and you are able to differentiate yourself from a non-luxury brand by giving XYZ attributes. So to market your product such that, okay, 99% of the population will not be able to afford my product, that shouldn't be any motto. That's not the ideal way to go about it. However, if you're coming up with a product that really has the worth it factor, then I think that should appeal to all millennials. So, yeah.
I'm actually not that sure about exclusivity. When you look at it, Louis Vuitton bags are around for 150 years or even longer.
Really?
All right. So millennials seem to have a preference for being the first on the block. For example, we call the queues around the Apple store, the handout that what they do. Similarly, Tesla has 500,000 cars on order, and they actually place an enormous premium on several cars. For example, you have to be willing to put down about $50,000 to be the first to get a roadster. So in other words, I'm not sure about the.
I get that. There is the differentiation between generic luxury products and limited edition items, and there are collectors, there are people who are really willing to pay a certain price to get more of it, more of the product at a quicker pace and ensure that no one around them has that. But I will again go back to the fact that they are in the minority. You will have very few people who are camping out. I mean, in pictures you'll see a lot of them, but in terms of the overall proportion of millennials, most of them are willing to wait, and they are again not concerned by the fact, oh, my friend also has that bag. That's fine, I can have that too. So there's a difference between exclusivity and limited edition. So limited edition can be in the same range of products. You can have different limited edition items, and that would in a way relate to the fourth attribute, where someone really wants the product to connect with themselves, and they're willing to pay a premium for it.
But that's personalized. That's not limited.
Yeah, let's assume that's not personalized. Let's assume that that's a particularly unique product that is not available to other customers. So what I'm differentiating between exclusivity and uniqueness. Exclusivity, I'm saying you don't exclude anyone. You give them the choices. And whether people prefer unique products or generic products, that's up to them. You only have to focus on quality, functionality, durability, and identity.
Which was a little bit the true definition of luxury. Last week I watched a video of Hubert de Givenchy a year ago at Christie's, and he was saying that when he started his career at Piguet, they had 2,500 seamstresses, which tells you the enormous distribution that one single haute couture company could have, which shows you that whoever could afford to buy those products, and they were not just royalties, they were clearly for quite a large group of people, so that you can employ 2,500. So, you know, I think you're trading here with the notions of rarity or exclusivity, I'm not sure. But
to that I'd say, Professor Capper, again, I'm very happy he's not here. He said, he said luxury is something that should be desired by all, but touched only by a happy few. But here's what I'll say to that. I'm trying to go back. This is not for the happy few, this is for the happy many. I mean, a fridge magnet is much cheaper than a Louis Vuitton handbag, and that is of course being done for millennials. A graffiti designed iPhone case, I honestly can't see a 70-year-old woman, my grandmother, carrying that iPhone case. So it is being done. So of course there's a commitment, you don't want to standardize it too much, you want to have too many seamstresses, but millennials is one separate group that is completely out of the book. They have to be, they want customized products, they also want small ticket items, so you have to cater to both their needs, and the best way to do is to focus on the worth it attributes. That's what I'm saying.
Thanks, Pritish.
Thank
Made
you.
me feel like a millennial.
Okay.
Because I like everything of those
I'm
you
glad.
saw. But thank you.
Thank you so much.